Shalom Aleichem, and welcome to Stark Tank, a podcast and community addressing the challenges and opportunities of being a Ben Torah in the workforce. If you don't want to miss out on bonus content, exclusive offers, and invites to in-person events, make sure to join our quiet WhatsApp group. The link is in the show notes. This week, we sit down with Aaron Katz, lawyer, shul builder, and baseball writer. He is a senior associate at GT Law in Tel Aviv. He is the founding president of Mevakshei Emes in the Mishkafayim neighborhood of Ramat Beit Shemesh, and is an occasional contributor to Tablet Magazine and other publications. We spoke about all these things and more in our conversation. If you have questions, comments, or suggestions, please email me at yaakovwolf@gmail.com. My name is Yaakov Wolf, and this is Stark Tank. Aaron Katz, welcome to Stark Tank. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
So you are the first practicing lawyer that we've had on the podcast. Maybe tell us a little bit of background, your upbringing, your childhood, and then how you decided to get law.
Sure. So like some of your other esteemed guests that you've had, I'm a Los Angeles native and grew up in a very strong, classic non-Orthodox religious Zionist home in LA. I grew up with Holocaust grandparents, on both sides, so that was a huge part of my life, growing up, and the community I grew up in and until today. Sort of the ethos I was raised in, and also strong shuls. I grew up at Jacob in Beverly Hills, the unusual Century City. Obviously, we have phenomenal shul rabbis. Rabbi Weil was there for years when I was younger, and Rabbi Muskin is still there, and just strong shuls, strong youth programming, strong team minions, strong kiddushes, and just a really positive environment. I was blessed. I had an amazing Rebbe in elementary school, Rabbi Mechi Blau, who was a big mechanech in LA, and then in Eula, I had also amazing Rebbeim, Rabbi Grama, Rabbi Rosh Klein, Shalom Temler, Rabbi Nachum Sauer, Shlita. Just really, really phenomenal baby. So really, we're just so blessed to grow up in a great environment, in a great, Torah environment. And that sort of led a whole chevra of mine, to, KBY. We had 8 kids went from Eula to KBY, and it was like a historic number. And, obviously had a great experience there. Learned by Rabbi Moshe Stav, his Gemara shir for 2 years, and developed a close kasher with Blachman also in that time. And then, sort of carried on, the classic textbook, made it to YU, learned by Rav Meir Tversky, and then actually did smicha in YU, came here to the Gris, finished smicha, came to the Gris Kolo, and Rabbi David Miller. And then sort of at that point is when, as you mentioned, there's a little bit of a turn from, I guess that's how I ended up on the podcast. Because if I stayed on it, if I didn't make that turn, we wouldn't end up here. But yeah, basically until that's sort of where I was, until that point, before I entered law school.
And so up until your time finishing YU Smicha, you still hadn't made a final decision about, say, your professional direction?
So it's a great question. So I think when I think I started, right when I was graduating college and sort of starting Smicha, still sort of undetermined, but at the time I also started dating and, sort of like, okay, let's think about next stage. And actually I was a psychology undergrad. My father, Dr. Ernie Katz is a psychologist in LA. For any LA listeners out there, my dad, does a lot of communal work also, and just a very, very special person. So I think I kind of, gravitated, into sort of, my dad did it, my dad does it, it works. So I did some psychology internships, and I was an undergrad in psychology. And then right around the sort of the time when I was getting married, I kind of realized maybe this, this isn't the best fit for me. I kind of thought about, I was more sort of research inclined, but to sort of make money and to do this professionally, you kind of have to be more of the, therapy setting, and for my dad, my mom, and my future college, I was like, maybe this isn't sort of my best skill set. So I did what many people do, is just all right, let me take the LSAT. So I kind of ended up in law as kind of this default. I think it was always sort of in the back of my mind, but I had a lot of friends that at the same time, I was in law school with a lot of other at the same time as a lot of friends in New York, and a lot of my febra, and I think it was sort of like a very common default at the time, and yeah, I think I was able to sort of make it work.
So you mentioned that when you finished Micha, you came to this inflection point and you really had to decide, and you decided to go into law school. But another big transition is after law school, entering into the workforce. So tell us about that period of your life.
For sure. So I think also just in law school, I was able to do a little bit of rabbinic still. I mean, I was at the University of Chicago for law school, and I was the JLIC, part-time rabbi, and I was able to give shirim, and we used to go down for Shabbos a little bit. So that was nice. Also started moving into Chicago. As when finishing university, I went to my wife's hometown of Chicago. So I kind of entered the city a little bit in a rabbinic setting, and also I was a rabbinic intern that first summer there under Matenki, who's rabbi's rabbi, is phenomenal. Shul rabbi, a leader, communal leader, and so I sort of entered Chicago as Rabbi Aaron Katz, and then that kind of was very helpful, kind of to adjust, because it wasn't just like you're going from Plus in Yerushalayim, you're sure from Miller and Varlunzin, and then boom, you're in law school. But I kind of was able to kind of go through this sort of transition, sort of in a rabbinic setting, which was very helpful. But then once started to graduate, then you go out into the workforce, and it was it was very different. But I will say what's nice about Chicago, I think, just in general with big law, New York is crazy. We've all read, the stories, and we've all, seen all the crazy what goes on in New York, and people work till 4 a.m. and then come home, black the car, the limo drives you home, and all that kind of craziness. So thank God Chicago is not New York. And it was definitely Midwestern values, but still kind of the craziness of the big law, the expectations and everything. But I think sort of being out of New York was quite nice. And also there's a lot of chevra at the time, but we all took the train together. We all wore kippahs. It was, you wear a kippah, you not wear a kippah, whatever reason that cultural era, when I started working, it was a whole chevra of us, of young guys, wearing kippahs, coming from, West Rogers Park. And, there's something special about that, eating, there was very limited kosher options, but we all would gather together for lunch. So we kind of made this little chevra shaft, together.
Anyone on this podcast is always welcome to come on and criticize New York. It's always, always more than welcome. So you started out in Chicago, you started out as a lawyer in a big law firm. And then at a certain point, you had this chassidus of making Aliyah. So maybe tell us a little about that decision. Was it an easy decision, a hard decision, and how that transition went for you and your family?
For sure. So our Aliyah story, I think, especially here, as we'll talk about a little bit about living in Mevakshei Emes, is where everyone has a story. It's just because otherwise, it's just without a good story, it doesn't work. And how do how people make it, how they ended up coming. So my story is the Aliyah journey is it's a pretty interesting story. I think a lot of people do, but Aliyah was sort of planted, the seeds. Again, coming from the strong. Religious Zionist home, and we have family in Israel, and it was always a big value, although I'm only one in my, immediate family that's here. But my wife, also grew up in Chicago, and also, strong, connections there to Israel, and from her year in seminary, and for her it was a big value. From dating, she almost didn't go out with me because I wasn't Aliyah enough. Actually, I was Jonathan had to lie and say, "Oh yeah, Aaron does want to make Aliyah." At that time, I was like, "I want to go back to LA," like every LA person. So we think, our universe was instrumental, and just in terms of spending time here and realizing maybe this could work. But again, once I went to law school and started working, it was so in the back burner, just because you got to focus on just kind of getting through. At the time in Chicago, we had 2 little kids. Just to survive the winter. But then actually right when I started working, Greenberg Charig law firm where I am today still, opened up an office in Tel Aviv right when I started. And I had already worked at Greenberg, the summer before, and I'd already interviewed 2 years before, so it was already hashkafa. It wasn't like I picked Greenberg because of it. But the sort of once when the office opened, I'd reached out to the head here and just, hey, I'm, from Guy, I'm interested in Israel, but nothing kind of real, just to say hello. And then about a year and a half into my working there, I reached out a little more concrete, and I said, hi, we're thinking about Aliyah in the future, can we talk? And basically this was around Pesach time. And I thought maybe in a year and 2 years and 3, I'm going to have this long plan. But basically I was offered, a job to come down. And I was like, what do you mean like now? Like, this was like, after Pesach, April, May, and it was like, yeah, come August. I was like, wait, I can't do that. Like, so in the end, actually, we ended up coming after Sukkot. And so I was like, who makes Aliyah after Sukkot? It was like a weird time, but we did it. But it was really just hashkafa and all things kind of lining that they were looking for a corporate associate in Tel Aviv. That's what I was doing. They were looking for someone, junior, not too senior. It was kind of like everything had to be sort of, the perfect fit. And, Baruch Hashem, with, a lot of hashkafa, and Gary Epstein is the founder of our office. He's a tremendous, builder of, he built our Tel Aviv office, and, a mentor in role model, and Joey Shabbat, our current, shareholder, we're able to sort of make the move over, to Tel Aviv. And being younger and having young kids made that obviously, much easier. That's not an Aliyah podcast, but that's a whole separate discussion. But just tachlis, coming with younger kids made that quick and easier.
And as far as general differences between practicing law here and there, what are some of the things that people who are in the law field and want to make Aliyah should consider and think about?
For sure. I mean, there's a lot, my path is unique because, sort of working for the U.S. law firm, but being in Israel. So it's kind of like, I didn't take the Israeli bar, and there's so many paths like this. I could write a book about it one day because, I talk about a lot, how try to help people, but there's obviously going the Israeli law route, taking the bar, joining the, working in the Israeli law firm has its pluses, has its minuses. There's people now with the post-COVID era are entirely working for a U.S. law firm, completely remote. So that obviously has, pluses, has minuses. So like my situation is kind of unique, and there's not a lot of other firms that do it. But what's been very special is being able to sort of work at a high level on, work that I'm trained in. It's the language that I'm familiar with, sort of work at a high level, but at the same time being in an office, most of almost our entire office is basically Olim, two Israelis who then became U.S. lawyers, but there is like a real, U.S. kind of vibe, in terms of, the work that we do and the manner that we do it. And at the same time, just be together with people that we're all in this together. Like, with Chagim, we're closed for Pesach, and Kol Hamoed, I was able to like spend time with my kids and like not be looking at my phone every second. Like, it's unheard of, for my peers that are in the States. And again, just the schedule is, the fact that, it's Friday, Shabbos is our weekend. Today's it's a Sunday morning, so, I'll be off to work soon. So, but it's a shift, obviously, of the U.S. But I, especially when I was starting as like an associate in Israel, in Chicago, one time on a Sunday at like, 1 p.m., I had one of these like horror stories where, a partner, emailed me, I need you to do XYZ now. And I was like, it's like Sunday afternoon, like, I'm with my wife and my, daughter at the time at Costco. Like, I can't go home, whatever. It's like, I rush home and everything like that. And then the partner basically said to me, he's like, you're not there Friday night, you're not there Shabbos, like, you got to be available Sunday. Like, that's it. Like, exactly, like, full stop. Like, that was it. Like, I was like, there's not much to respond to that. And, thankfully now I don't sort of have that, just because we're sort of all on the same time schedule. So that's something very special. And obviously, I don't think we can, we can't sit and talk at this time without reflecting, on the Matzav and what's going on, at this time, in Israel, and to sort of work together with people, and, the people in our office that have, kids that are in, who were serving in Gaza, and then the grandkids that we're in, and there's like a real, like, we're in this together, and there's like a real, family, vibe, and Yiddishkeit, and also just sort of like in the Eretz Yisrael being together, and that's unheard of in a law firm setting where, in the U.S. where it's, it's just about hours. Like, it's just different. There's something about Israel, and I think that's not just for myself. I think that's also a lot of people that you've spoken with, a lot of the VCs and people in private equity, and there's something different, about being here. So for that, I think it's so great to be able to sort of go to work with people that understand you culturally, religiously, and we're in this together. So something about that is very special. I don't miss, like, I was only doing it for, you had people that worked much more in the States. Like, I only worked for, about almost 2 years, but like, I don't miss that at all. Like, I don't miss, like, Friday, Chicago, going home at, 2 p.m. It's not easy. It's really challenging. It's like, it's hard, and it requires a lot of shifting, and people can do it. Thank God this isn't, again, we're not talking about, you have to hide. I didn't have to hide my Yiddishkeit. And, we're not talking about the 50s and 60s, or we wouldn't get hired or get to hide things. We were very open. And when the firm, my other friends at other firms in Chicago, they'll give you the kashrus, they'll take care of you, they'll give you the black car, the car to get home, they'll take care of you, but they'll expect, and they'll expect you were there on Motzei Shabbos and Sunday and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think it's very blessed to be doing this here.
Yeah, it certainly sounds familiar and resonates. My first year in Israel, I was a seventh grader, and I remember this feeling of Sunday mornings at 6:30, waking up for my bus and just looking in the mirror. I'm like, this is just like a yucky feeling of like getting up at 6:30 on a Sunday. But a little more perspective, a little more time, a little more water under the bridge, you realize the profundity of what you mentioned. The first mitzvah is Rosh Chodeshim. That is the basis of everything that we do, is our schedule, our calendar. And so once that's all set on Jewish and Israeli values, and it's just part of the culture. And then you mentioned Erev Shabbos, so we're Soloveitchik talking about the Erev Shabbos Jew. So all of us are off on Fridays. Almost everyone in this country is off on Fridays, and that really just creates a different vibe going into Shabbos. Altogether, so those are things that I've come to appreciate a lot more after getting used to getting up early on Sunday mornings. So you mentioned that your firm is very Anglo, and you're here in Mevakshei Emes, a very Anglo environment. So it's a big question that Olim face as far as integration goes. So before I guess we'll transition to talk a little about the shul, the beautiful shul that you built in Mevakshei Emes. We're able to segue from your law transition by talking a little bit about the transition from being in America to being in Israel, and the integration and the challenges that you face. And obviously each person is different, but just on your experiences in that regard.
No, absolutely. So Mevakshei Emes is called, today's term, vernacular, is like the soft-landing, right? That's what everybody says. And basically comes, there's different other soft landings. At this point, people making Aliyah, Mevakshei Emes, Modi'in, Efrat, Renana, Yerushalayim, it's funny. I think I always said, I make Aliyah, of course I go to Yerushalayim. But what does that mean? No one's getting you a house in Shari Chesed. It's not like, but you kind of have this, when you're in yeshiva, I think it's that's where I want to be. But thankfully, actually, I have two first cousins in Mevakshei Emes. I spent a lot of time here when I was in yeshiva. And we actually going to do a pilot trip. It was we kind of decided to come here, and, a dear friend, Yaakov Ehrenkrantz, who, a mutual friend of ours, who made Aliyah just a few months before, and he went to Ramat Shila, where we started, and he went there because another friend went there, and we just all right, that's where we're gonna go. And that's just so natural. So it was incredible. It was incredible. And the first year, we were in that community. We were invited out every Shabbos and by amazing people, and taken in. It was just so special to be surrounded, by other Olim, and then that's really sort of who you're sort of on the ground family is if you don't have parents here, which we don't have. So in that regard, it's been very special. And also what's unique, I think, especially Mevakshei Emes also is the number of schools that really cater to Olim, but not even that means everything's in English. It's just they understand sort of your where you're coming from, and I think there's also sort of every flavor. And we have friends across the board, and it's obviously, this is a whole other discussion of what sort of where you choose to put your kids in school. But there's obviously the Tilumi, and then there's super Tilumi, and then there's super Haredi, and then there's kind of Anglo Haredi, and in that sort of Anglo Haredi space, there are lots of schools. There's 4 or 5 schools for girls, there's 4 for boys. In Mishkafayim, I don't have kids in that school, but right across the street is Netzach, and they've had people that I think had Rabbi Pfeffer, but now he's doing other schools, and then there's Rabbi Bambeck, and there's also other people involved sort of with the Netzach movement, and that's a whole fascinating, that's literally across the street from us. So that's a whole, sort of thing. There's a lot going on here in Mevakshei Emes that you don't necessarily find sort of in other cities. So that's been very special, but I think that's not without, saying that this is this is not for everyone. This is not a perfect model, but it definitely, in sort of when we coming with young kids, also enables us to sort of look at the schools and choose. Again, we're not coming with sort of older kids, and it just makes it much easier. But again, the community is phenomenal. It just people are your family, and we as a community went through Corona, when everyone's used to hey, make Aliyah, you go back every summer to the States. It's all very nice, but it's when it's once it's hey, wait, the airport's closed and my parents can't come and I can't leave, and then obviously the current months have also so it really requires you really strong community. And we're is different than a lot of sort of Israeli born people. I have an aunt and uncle live in Givat Zev, so I spent a lot of time in their shul, and it's a classic Israeli shul. And I remember talking to my uncle a year ago, and I said, oh, like, what's membership? And he's like, oh no, we haven't been paying membership for years. Like, we just started, but like, that's because like the Uriel like built their shul, and like they never had a full-time paid rabbi. And now they're doing more of that. But like, that was just the classic model. Like, oh, there's a shul and Uriel builds it, and like, there's no rabbi. And like, we're like the complete opposite of like, if we get to like, we want membership, we want a rabbi, we want like the community. So like, there's something very special. And in your Mevakshei Emes, there's so many flavors of, you could sort of find yourself and find a matim community. Again, it's not the only one, but it's been great, and it obviously every year is, you grew up in Beis Shemesh, but both Beis Shemesh and Mevakshei Emes, like, I think in Mevakshei numbers, it's the highest percentage where the people go is to the city. So there's obviously something that's working. I think that is drawing people, and drew me, drew your parents, so yeah.
You mentioned two things there, and I want to tease them apart. Number one is that there are some very wonderful things about this city and this community, and that's great. You also called it a soft landing, which is mashma, that there's also something beyond the landing period, and there has to be some sort of transition and thinking about how you go from those early years to maybe longer term. So what are your thoughts about, for yourself, your family, your people around you, a long-term vision? Because, it's nice to have the soft landing, but is that really what you're going to be doing and your kids are going to be doing and your grandkids?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. As we get, a little bit older, actually, the end of this week, please God, is our oldest, our daughter's bar mitzvah. So I feel like we're, in that year. So we're getting old, I guess, at the end of this week. But that is sort of like a next stage. Meaning we're already, we're not at high school yet, but we're already now. It's like, a few years ago, all we talked about at Shabbos table was like, elementary school. Now we're like, all we talk about is like high school. And the older ones are girls, and then a few years till we have some boys. So then, the whole army question, and that's sort of the next thing. But we're sort of going like in stages and kind of growing up and thinking about it. But these questions are strong questions, and I think with the thing about the RBS bubble that you see, which is in a way nice, is now a lot of the RBS Brown Mevakshei Emes really, I think, started in 97 or 98 or something. So now a lot of kids that were sort of born from that first cohort are getting married to each other. Right, I guess you're part of that also, of that, of sort of that generation kind of mirroring each other. So it's nice, like in VAGF, I know it's like really beautiful, everyone like marry, and it's nice, and that works for a lot of people. But obviously, what if you have a child who doesn't want to sort of stay in that bubble, or what about sort of broader, thinking about the broader country as a whole? So I think again there are. I'm not one of the, I look, when people that sort of like the India Gaf, and I think like that it's really beautiful. Some people, again, you could sort of look at it from different perspectives. But I think for my generation, it's like, it's really beautiful. Like if my kids, please God, would end up marrying like one of my shul friends, like it would be awesome. Like these are great people. Like, so that it makes sense, and we're very similar and all that kind of stuff. But I think they're strong questions when it's, when you have a child who goes to like an Anglo-friendly school and then, is suffering in Hebrew, like, that's a problem. That's something that I think has to be addressed. And I think those questions, people are realizing now, like we have to address those. I don't think it's like, and we get to in a minute about the shulam involvement, but Chaim Eisenstein is our more dasra, so he hates the fact that like kids are lacking in Hebrew, like it's not allowed, and it was a strong point in the shul, and he speaks a lot in Hebrew in shiurim that he gives, which was very mechudash, and he all announcements have to be in Hebrew, and people come like, why are you announcing Mariv is going to be Mariv B'Shmona, like everyone's American, but like no, like we're in Israel, like makes a very strong sheet about that. And all our kids programming is in Hebrew, and again, that's sort of a statement. And again, I think you highlight Rabbi Pfefferon and like what he's writing on Army, and these are strong questions. Like, and I think that people realize that it's not, you can't sort of just come and just you obviously have to think about the here and now, but you do have to kind of think X leads to Y to Z, and give credit also to Blachman. When we spoke with him, we made Aliyah 10 years ago, and I was asking about schools and this school and that school, and Rabbi Chaim's like, well, what do they go to high school? I don't know. He's like, well, that's like the most fundamental question. And even at the time, it was like a first grader, and he's like, what's high school? And what's high school? What's afterwards? Like, I think people are sort of realizing that we do have to sort of think long term, and again, think about Hebrew, think about integration, think about if a kid graduates from a local high school and then ends up in an American institution, like a chutznik program, like is that a failure? Is that something good? How do you pay for that? If that, like, I mean, like the real, dollars and cents questions and hashkafic questions. And, at this stage, I'm still a bunch of years away, but if you would tell me now, so this is in 5-6 years that, my daughter is going to the American, seminary for chutznikim, I'd be like, I don't want that. But maybe in a few years, they'll say that's actually great because it shows that she's still integrated with, the U.S. and she has those norms and she'll stay here and she'll have the values. And you could cross, cut this in many different ways. But I think they're strong questions that we need to have. And I think thankfully we're in a community, even RBS as a whole, where people are asking these questions, but they think they need to be asked.
Right. It's the big questions, and I appreciate your perspective. And I think the image of the shul full of Americans and the guy stumbling through Hebrew announcements, trying to with his broken Hebrew is a strong image in my mind. And I just think that my question for you maybe would be, don't you think that one of the keys might be actually having more Israelis in your life and maybe trying to engineer that a little more? Because as much as you try to be Israeli or speak Hebrew, but like if you're all surrounded by Americans and you're a shul and your community and in your law firm, so then you're going to be limited and handicap in that sense.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. It's funny when we started the shul. I mean, Mishkafayim I think has about 10 shuls. So we're like in a valley and they're actually building more. But it started as one Merkazi shul, and then now there's 10. So from that came some American shuls, came Mevakshei Emes, where I daven, came a Chabad, came a Tvardi, came a Sfardi Haredi, so like everything kind of like broke. And Eliza Bluff, our mayor, previous mayor, we met with her many times, and her dream was a big Ashkenaz shul and a big Sfardi shul, and everyone's together and like. It didn't happen. It's just there's so many reasons why, but that was her dream, and she always spoke about it, and that was her vision, and there's something beautiful in her vision, and there's something beautiful in what we have now. But it's hard. Even in our show, early on, we had some more Israelis, and then they a lot of the things that we really wanted, they don't necessarily, again, with all the sort of the kids programming and all that kind of stuff, and the formalities. They're more comfortable with just sort of going to like, a local shul, and you have sort of more, no frills, and there's lots of great shuls like that, in Mevakshei and in Mishkafayim also, and sort of the formalities and the shirim and not necessarily things that they are used to, that they grew up with. I have a very good friend here, Yossi Green actually works for Rabbi Pfeffer, works for Tikva, and we were neighbors when we first moved to Mishkafayim. And Yossi grew up, here in Israel, and he saw we were showing shoulders and this and the flyers, and he was just like, he still floored them, and he was always like, we were always reflecting, and he was coming from a whole different, vantage point. He now worked with Rabbi Pfeffer and Haredi community building in Eretz Yisrael, and like, it's very foreign, like, sort of what was done here, and sort of, and then the shows that we're getting at. But it was always great to sort of speak with him. So now to speak with him, get sort of his perspective. But it's very different. We're coming from different places. We're looking for different things. What we're really looking for is kind of like, going back to the Jewish center that was built in the Upper West Side. You started with Mordechai Kaplan, right? But then obviously left shortly thereafter. But that was sort of the vision, and then sort of these Upper West Side shuls, where there's sort of like a JCC, the Jewish Community Center component with the shul, and again that was a big finish, in New York in 1920. But that's how I grew up in strong shuls, and most of our shul grew up, at towns, as Teaneck or West Hempstead or wherever they grew up with shuls and looking for more. And again, we don't have, there is a matnas in the city, but like in a way, our shul is sort of functioning as that. As the sort of the JCC and the shul, and it's different. But I think you are definitely right in terms of like what the ideal would be. We would just sort of like all be together and daven together, I don't think all the shuls that I could think of that are successful, like there's a great shul, Zechar Moshe up the hill. There's no rabbi, but it's a great Israeli American come go. But but having like it sort of allows that sort of coming together, and it's a very beautiful shul. Again, Israelis, Americans, everyone's together. But I think sort of where you have like kind of thinking in Rabbi Shemesh, full leadership of Rabbi David and Rabbi Haber and Rabbi Kornfeld. I mean, these are world class. Like those shuls are drawing angles. Like it's just the nature of it. But I think it's a great point. I think again it requires further thought. This is one approach, not that this is the only one.
You keep on mentioning Mevakshei Emes, so let's really dive into that a little more. Tell us about Mevakshei Emes and how it was founded and where it's holding today.
Great. So we've actually started again. So Mishkafayim started, the classic, starts with one shul, and then, sort of the different shuls came out. So we actually came out of, another shul. It's, the beginning is always fun. There's this shul, there's that shul. Like, I remember even when I first moved to Mevakshei Emes, and I went up the hill, to the classic Aleph, and someone's like, oh, that shul's a split of that shul, and at this point, no one remembers, so thankfully now we're literally 5 years in. So at this point, in the beginning it was all this, XYZ, but it's all worked out. But a chevra of us from, really Bris Kolo Olam, who, some of us had been, actually when I was in Gross, Rabbi Eisenstein himself, is a fascinating background himself, and he learned in Torah V'das, and then he learned in YU for many years in Kol Alyon, was Talmud of Rav Braunschweigel, and then came to Eretz Yisrael to be Shana Bet Rebbe in Netiv Aryeh at a very young age, and was at Netiv for about 15 years. Was Shana Bet Rebbe, came very close to Reb Nebenzahl, who was still his Rebbe Muvak, and that a big part of his psak and the shul is sort of in the derech of Reb Nebenzahl, and then now is teaching Grus Kolo. So a few of us who knew Rabbi Einstein from Grus, sort of was in Ramat B'Shemesh, and there's also was a night kollel that has been going on for 7-8 years, started by Donnie Feiner, Rabbi Dr. Donnie Feiner, who's also a tremendous, should be on the podcast, tremendous person who's done a lot of amazing things, also a Gross alum, and then who knew Rabbi Einstein from YU, and sort of, Rabbi Einstein was sort of doing teaching, and there were chassidus is going on in different places, but it was never sort of, concretized. And then we sort of saw a need, in here in Mishkafayim. We were looking for a strong rabbinic presence, a posek, also someone, again, to sort of bring in, to do chassidus, to do communal, and then sort of looking to sort of build a sort of tehillah. We started, small. We started, in a parking spot, and then right away, boom, came COVID, and then we were in a tent, and then thankfully, just working with the area, working with different shuls, we were able to get a piece of land, and then we put up it's called Binyan Kala. So it's sort of like, it's kind of like a glorified, it's not just the caravan that you just put down. It was actually, we built it. And, it right now we're actually a few weeks away from, from potentially doing, we're going to do another, to build a second floor with Ezra Nashim and to make it more, matim for usage. Well, right now it's sort of one big room. So we're limited in sort of having multiple things at the same time. So again, sort of, slow process. But thankfully we have, the show's been growing and, just tremendous people, like a lot of guys working, a lot of guys, most of the chevra guys working, a lot of guys have U.S. jobs, which is also a unique thing about, living in sort of these angle areas. So you have Balabatim that are learning in the morning and then, sort of working, late into the night. And then we also have a nice amount of guys that work in Rashid and in Mevaseret and Ashrenu, Shalvim. So that's also really nice because that brings a lot of, Shalbei kids that are always there, that are coming in and out of the shul, and Rabbi teaching Gross, so they have Gross people coming. So I think it's been nice and sort of been able to sort of, put ourselves, on the map in sort of in our world. But obviously still a lot more, to do. And just for instance, like yesterday, there's a new program that Rabbi has been pushing for a while, is that, we've done a lot of, we have like Tefillah Eladim, take care of the kids. And then we have like Limud Horim, like, Abu Sabanim, again, like next little older kids. But, the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade boys, like, the Shabbos afternoon is a long day, so there was no programming for that. So we just added a Mekanshe Shi program. The guy's going to do an Amud a week. And that started and led by Shemai Chavrusa, who's a Rebbe in Rashid. So, he has real kochos at like, getting guys and motivating guys. So like the same thing of like sort of getting, the Rashid kids, and he's able to now do that with, our 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade boys. So it's very special that people are able to sort of take different kochos. And then the show also has, very strong Nishay, which my wife started, 5 years ago. And then, we have girls programming and Milan Malkos and the sort of things again that we're sort of are used to, and you take this for granted, when you're, in the States paying, $3,000 a year in membership and you have a full-time rabbi. So like, this is like a little bit different here where it's limited around Keva. The full-time rabbi is not something common here. I don't even know if, it exists in the city of Beit Shemesh. I can't think of any rabbi who's full-time. And obviously, our rabbi is teaching, teaches in Gross, teaches in Shraga, teaches in Reshit. So obviously, it's a different, just sort of how things work here. And I think people are a lot of times, perspective of that come to the shul, and they're like, expecting, so you're like Renzing's here like all day. I'm like, no, it doesn't look like that here. Like, it's just not how, I don't understand. Like, so it's, again, you're thinking of like, LA and Teaneck and, Chicago and stuff. So it's different, but I think we're trying to kind of mold something special, and thankfully with, Rabbi Eisenstein's leadership. And I should just to note, if it would be, I couldn't really know sort of my involvement with the shul. Then first of all, my wife who's been behind it and put up with, everything from the beginning. And thankfully there's also just a great team around me. I sort of stepped down, kind of into like an emeritus role, but obviously still involved, but with some great other chevra that have sort of picked up the day to day, just because, I think it was time for new blood, and it's good new perspectives. And also just, other Rebbeim that have helped me, obviously David Miller, who's Reinstein. It's very helpful when, one of your Rebbeim is also like your boss, your shul rabbi's boss. So it's like, we're sort of all coming, from Rav Miller. We're able to bring Rav Miller for Shabbos and, spoken with him a lot. And also just in general, even when we're talking about sort of the RBS bubble, Judah Michelle, he's a noted teacher, Mashpia, taught for many years in Reshit, and now, running Camp Hask. So a lot of the Fevra in our shul are very close with him, from different places that, people, a lot of guys went to Rishon, a lot of guys know him from Hess. And I just it was so good to meet him, 7-8 years ago to share in Ramat Beit Shemesh. And Rav Judah has a real, he's amazing. He's amazing. He's amazing. And he has a real klush and understanding of, how to work with people. And since day one, I've sort of always been my go-to. I remember we were doing like a Koznetch, and I was super into it. And then, the guy next to me in Shul, who's also Davins there, I asked him, can you do a page? And he's like, no. I was like, you have to do a page. And I was like, I remember I'm calling from Judah. I was like, you got to help me. Like, I need help. How do you deal with people? And there's a way to deal with people like that. Like, the sort of the free riders. And, but he's special. And special, again, just, he has two son-in-laws, one who very well, obviously, in Kolo and Faith Wine, another son-in-law, both his daughters got married, and then, they're both their husbands were off, called up or in fighting in the Shachim and Gaza, and to have Rav Judah as a mentor, someone you work together, sort of just informally, but always guiding me and to ask him about chinuch questions, and then to sort of see this real Eretz Yisrael again. My kids are not there yet, but he's been, someone's been very special to me and to a lot of the chevra here in the shul. It's special. It's special to be in a city where there's a lot of talent in the city of Beit Shemesh. You're from Beit Shemesh or Rav Beit Shemesh, it's very special. That's another sort of a special thing. Again, other cities have that also. But again, I didn't, Chicago, they're obviously great rabbis, but, just in terms of, number wise, it's not the same. It's not like you can sort of just, everywhere you go, sort of bring people and connect people into your shul. And I think the informality a little bit of Israel sort of allows, you could sort of move around a little bit more than sort of how you do sort of sometimes in the States, kind of just a little bit, sort of tighter communities.
And listening to you, it really resonates what you're saying in many ways. But one of the things is that you built the resource that you wanted to have in your life. You wanted to have that strong, robust community and shul and Rav's presence. And so you went out and you took that role of building the resource that you wanted to have for yourself and your family and your friends. So reflect a little bit on this podcast is a similar journey, that it was a resource that I felt I wanted for myself and didn't really exist. So I felt I had to go out and build it. So I want to hear your reflections on the challenges and frustrations and also opportunities and benefits of being in that role of the building chair, along with others, obviously, of building that project that is so important to you.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think I heard a recent story where it's like a classic joke of someone's like, oh, where is the new shul starting, right? So let's say there's Reuven's coming to your shul, and then all of a sudden Reuven's not there week 1. Okay, whatever, and he's not there week 2, He's at the week 3. Like, okay, he's at the breakaway. He's at the break. He's at this and that. And then you like call Reuven up. You say, Reuven, like, where are you? He's like, I've been sick with mono and, this. And then you're like, oh, Baruch Hashem. Like, it's like amazing. Like, it's like you completely lose sight of like what is important and everything like that. And I think that's a real challenge. And I think I myself, in the beginning, again, we're sort of like this shul and new shul and the breakaway and who's happening here. And it was hard in the beginning to sort of to get out of that mindset. And I think it's a real challenge. And I will say, thankfully, a lot of kudos to my wife and, sort of like, the shul that we, sort of were together with and we sort of broke apart from, some of my best friends are in the other shul and I love those guys and we're still, we're great friends. Like, I'm in a weight loss competition right now with, some guys in the other, like we've kept it. It's a small community. We're all in this together. But again, you can't, it's obviously, it is natural, I think in the beginning where you're sort of trying to make, why are we different? Like, I'm like, why are you different? What's new about you? Well, you have to now do that in a way where you're not sort of putting down the other shul. And we all do that. Why is your law firm different? Why is your shul different? Why is your yeshiva different? Like, again, the ideal is like to do that without knocking the other. But it's hard to do. It's hard because once you start sort of making a separation, you do X, Y, Z, so they don't, well, they do it also. Well, then why do you need to be there? So again, I think that was sort of the struggle in the beginning, but thankfully, that really time heals that. Like, there's no other way around it. Again, at this point, it's so long ago. And again, the sort of the shul we left from, I'm actually like, I was on the original VAD of that other shul. So I tell like new people move in, like, I actually like helped start, that shul. And they're like, what? That doesn't make any sense. I was like, yeah, it was a long time ago. And that's only 5 years, but in the time heals that. And also to Rabbi Eisenstein's credit, like in the beginning, there were a few times where I thought, just in general, things happened and I felt that I could sort of stand up for him. And I had to go to battle. And, someone, slighted him. And every time I call Ryan, he's like, stop. Like, it's like, I don't need that. And again, I was, at the time I was younger. I didn't know how these things worked. And a lot of credit to him. And I think it takes, it takes maturity. It takes, someone who's been a little bit more experienced, but that also sort of enables, everyone to sort of just, kind of let things develop. But again, it's sort of what you're hitting at of like, to sort of like to step back. And I think that for myself has been really special. Everyone's always joking, like, my answer now is like, I'm not involved. I would say I'm not involved. And they joke because like, I'm still involved, but I'm not really that involved. But sometimes, but it is special. And it's special to even yesterday, like, to look around and see all these kids are learning and everything. And like, to know that you had a part, just in getting people together. Not that I did anything special. I didn't have any special skill or anything like that, but I was able to help, bring people together and help bring the rabbi in, and then sort of like, things like, can work together. But again, once you start a project, you never know, what's going to be. And so there's a lot of siyata d'shmaya. And I remember the night before we like announced the show, I remember calling the Miller and I'm like, so I made sure like I have your bracha for this. Like I just like knew that like that like last like we're good, like you're good. We're good with me doing this. You're good with the Bidens doing this. Like just to sort of get that and so Baruch Hashem, we have Rebbein we could turn to because otherwise I think it's it's hard because you're always like, wait, am I just doing this for kavod, for doing this for title of kavod or for some ulterior motive and again it would be. We're natural, right? There are elements of it. Are you doing this to, again, like in the beginning when it's like, that first time you make a million, and that other shul fails, because those guys have to come over to your shul. And it happened, and like, wow, it's like, well, it's a great feeling, but like, that's not the point of this. And I think Rajita a lot also, and there was specifically, one time someone left me a voice note and it was someone, on our pro us, but it was like a very divisive and like, X, Y, Z, did like this whole thing. And I said to Regina, because there was no names of any, who you didn't know the person giving it, and there was no names of specific, whatever. Like it was, I don't have time for this, but I think it worked. Like I was very, just in a vacuum, like the statement, like what do I do with this? Like, and I just remember Regina like, wait, what are we here? What are you building these classes for? Are you doing this for Hashem? Like, we're going to Hashem and all this. And like, I think I've listened to a lot of like Rosh Hashanah with Shem and like, he's definitely doing when he talks about also when he was doing in the Ishvodish and like, there is ultimately like we're all doing this. We're all doing this ultimately, for like to be Marbek of a tribe and stuff. So like, where is that in this discussion? And I think Regina like really put me in place again when someone's like this or that. Again, like let's all take a step back. Like let's just think big picture, and it's hard to do. So I think again, I have to thank Rebbeim that have enabled again. And I'm not perfect. I don't someone's gonna listen to this and they're gonna call me up and laugh at this part because again, I don't think I'm the paragon of this. But it's something that I strive for, and I think I'm getting at a little bit. And as I get older, I would say as I get older, I understand this more and more. So just on that point. So they said Ben Arbaim Levina, so I'm not there yet, but please God, in a few months I'll hit that. And Ben Shishim was Zikna. So Reb Lachman told me a story once. Someone came to a Rebbe and they said, I'm turning 60, getting old. And Ben Shishim was Zikna. I'm really worried about this next stage of life. So Rebbe said, don't worry, you didn't hit Ben Arbaim Levina, you're not going to, don't worry about Ben Shishim was Zikna. So hopefully these are stages that, that we're able to hit into to accomplish. But again, so the Mishnah's hitting on something, obviously very wise. You don't have Bina. We just don't have it at this early age.
So there's so many important points there about relationships, community building, Rebbeim guiding you, and Kadosh Baruch Hu staying at the center of everything that we're doing. And I really appreciate all of that. We're winding down on time now. So maybe the last few minutes, you can tell us a little bit about some of the writing that you do. You do a lot of different writing in different styles and different genres and topics. Maybe you can just tell us a little bit about that as we wind down the conversation.
Okay, great. So I kind of always had a bug for writing, and it's come from expressed itself in different points, sort of along the journey. So Tablet, I have a dear friend Menachem Butler who's involved in Tablet. So when in my earlier years, in Chicago, last year in Chicago, and then earlier years in Israel, I wrote 10 different articles for them. And Jews in baseball. Baseball we didn't even talk about at all. 47 minutes, it's crazy. I've made it this far or whatever, 45 minutes and without mentioning baseball, but that's again from LA roots, it's a deep love, and it's not just there's again people watching a game, but there's sort of the history component to it, and baseball books and everything. There's no room for in my man cave here, so all my baseball books are actually in my law office at work. So it's you have to keep it all over there. But there there's a real baseball love and real love of history, and so I've done some really some cool stories along the way. Sandy Koufax called my cell phone. I have some cool things that I've written about, and also as I mentioned in the beginning, sort of Holocaust shaped a lot of my. It continues to shape, my identity and my upbringing. So written different articles about my grandparents' story and how that connects. So that was some really great outlet and something that I've been able to use and sort of send those articles along and been very special. In addition, I was able to write something on the Sfarim blog on Hakel, which was a special article that I had worked on for a little while. And worked with Menachem Butler and dear friend Aliyah and Integaration also on that. And in addition, now at this point, where I am right now, I'm trying to write something sort of once a year that will sort of get published. So I'm just edited an amazing book on Tefillah for Mishaberach for Chayalim, and there's phenomenal articles in there. And I was gracious to add a little bit of my piece, a little small piece to really a phenomenal book. Plug for that book.
In the show notes.
Yeah, it's an amazing book. But I sort of wrote a little bit of what we talked about. It's sort of like making Aliyah and sort of living in this bubble, and again, not having been in the army, but being in Israel during this time. How do I deal with that? How do I, while still having tremendous hours of hope, but then also sort of reflections of guilt. So that was a very special article. And then sort of on a personal level, I also had sort of a few mistafkas that I compiled sort of notes on each amud, and sort of just small thing that I sort of wrote. I just sort of sent to friends and hadn't done anything with sort of on a mass level. So I think it's a lot of writing now. I'm doing also sort of on this personal kind of just collecting. Over the years, I've also I'm learning more and more chassidus and a lot of the history of chassidus and just amazing books. And I always found that ideas, that you would see, they're a great idea. If you don't write it down, it just kind of goes in, you hear it great forward, you're not going to remember, you're not going to write it down. So, with encouragement, of some friends, a few years ago, I basically started, just sort of writing down, emails on Hasidic idea, Hasidic history, or Rebbe died, writing something like that, just a small idea. And then basically I would write sort of an email and send it to my family. And then after 100, I would collect them together. So I now I've 4 of these collections, I have 400 ideas. And then now I just finished another 100, which I have to now put it into this small, again, it's just send it on to friends, anyone wants it, happy to reach out. But I don't know that I'm doing with it. Like, I think it's just, but the idea was sort of, again, you listen to Shir Roshweimer, or you read something in Rav Judah's Vaderech, or you look at the Moranshir, and like, again, these beautiful ideas, these inspirational ideas. And like, again, if you're not, without sort of writing it down, without putting it, it's just you're gonna forget it. And that's okay. I'm not judging, forgetting, but there's something I just kind of felt that I was lacking. I think with sort of the primary text of, Gemara, there's like, the Gemara is there. But a lot of these like great ideas are like, you don't necessarily find it. You're not going to find the trigger to find it again. So I think, so that's sort of another sort of project. I think with that project, I don't know. We'll see. I think it's just been enjoyable. I have at least 500 ideas, and hopefully maybe another 500, maybe 1,000. I'll call you up and we can think about what to do with it. But I think it's an important idea. Important lesson is that there's obviously sort of like formal publishing, which I've done a little bit of. There's obviously you've had people on that have done more. And people have done less. So there's obviously different ways. But again, something like, a dear mentor of mine, Zivi Mendelson, who you had on, to put out, like a safer, like of that quality and caliber that's inspirational to, maybe, it's
aspirational.
What did I say?
It's both inspirational.
Yeah, I did the wrong word. But something like that is amazing. So maybe that's the answer. Maybe that's something I'll work on, in the next period. But I think it is important for people to, at least, again, whether, it's, whether you have a spiritual diary, like, Rav Kook, or, you're writing things down like Rabbi Nachman or Yonasan or something, but to be sort of, producing, and maybe it's just, an audio blog or something internal for your family. I don't know, it's some level to sort of be producing, because I think it is helpful, and it shows, it allows you to continue, you're sort of growing, and you sort of see your growth. And also, at the right time to think about how ways that you could, spread it out. I think, like, again, this podcast is amazing. Like, you could have potentially done all these interviews and waited 5 years and then published a book or something. And maybe you still will. But maybe right now you're putting it out and you're getting feedback and active in real time. And that's amazing. Like, again, just on the podcast, like, I have this, idea in my head of like doing something with my father. My father's a psychologist and has all these amazing ideas. And like, and it's there. It's like, and I already spoke to, PR person and, someone who could help with the social media component and set up the podcast. But then I don't know, then I never got back to him. It's like, but again, I don't have to think about it. This is an amazing idea. And like, I don't want to be something, in 10 years, I'm like, well, why didn't I go through with that? So I think we all have to, we all have to come up with these ideas. We have to act on them. Kudos on this podcast. It was an amazing opportunity to hear different. I've learned a tremendous amount from people I knew that were on the podcast, and people I'm not familiar with. Again, just everyone just trying to grow in their own way, and I think that's what's beautiful. Also, like, you've had people from across, living in different places, doing different fields. Even had a doctor on, because it was an exciting thing. So I think it's something very special. So kudos for promoting this and for spreading this.
Thank you. It was definitely touching. A number of people have reached out and told me that they actually sit down and take notes on certain conversations, which touched me a lot, because it really shows that the touch about pay that they listen to while they're washing dishes or driving, and they really want to concretize and have that extra level. And I do hope to be doing more written content around what we're doing here. And I just wanted to ask you what your favorite episode was so far. Now you mentioned your loyal listeners.
Yeah, no, I have some good friend. I mean, look, Mo Murnick is my pitcher in my softball, so I love Mo. So there's no, I love them all. But I think for me personally, again, ZV, I think maybe the LA connection, our family's go way back. But when I first actually let ZV's father, Les Mendelson, also is a long-term family friend, and I first, Les gave me ZV Sefer before I even met ZV. He's like, I have a son or a Sefer. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what that means. Like, I don't know, like, you just give me the Sefer. And then, sort of looking through the pieces, and then I have the opportunity to meet ZV and to see the Sefer, and then, to hear his journey. A lot of what I had learned a lot from this podcast. And again, it's someone that's it's incredible. And, the love that he has for his Rebbe, for Schefter, is unparalleled. And to see it again, it's like, again, we've seen people in Washington Heights that are like that. You see people in the Gross that are like that. But to see someone, who's in Renana, who's, he's, working at such a high level and community leader, but the cover that he has for his Rebbe, like it was worth it. I think, for me to, just to hear his love for Schechter and to see that in action was very, very special. And that touched, that just hit a chord. So I think back to that.
Okay, thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Shark Tank. Please take 10 seconds and help us grow the show by leaving a 5-star review and hitting that subscribe button. The next episode is the finale in the Pirkei Avos series, followed by a very special interview dropping next Monday, so stay tuned for that. Until next time, keep on steiging, Chevra.